All right, hey everybody, we're back for episode 3 of season 2 of The Mandalorian, titled The Heiress, chapter 11, and we have a Gundark sighting. Go figure.
Yay.
We'll be right back after this.
I do have a question. Are we in the viewer trade full screen recording, or is it Brady Bunch view?
Brady Bunch.
Okay, because on my side that sees you.
Because you control your own setting. You got it on speaker.
Oh,
Just change it to the Brady Bunch setting.
remind me one more time how I do that. The view?
Yeah, and then on the right,
Okay.
say speaker view.
All right, gotcha. Yeah.
All right. So we're going to start out this episode by just giving, as usual, our non-spoiler thoughts, overall general feelings for the episode. And since Gundark has not been with us for a while, I'm going to throw it to her first.
Yay.
What did you think of The Heiress?
I really enjoyed it. I feel kind of ashamed though because I don't know enough about Clone Wars. I failed in my
Shamed.
Gundark Clone Wars challenge because this is where Clone Wars really seems to start intersecting with the Mandalorian.
Yeah, it is.
No other spoilers
Mhm.
yet. But my challenge was to try to finish all of the Clone Wars episodes before the Mandalorian premiered. And I am so far behind. It's abysmal. And so there are some things I don't understand, that I don't know the full backstory of from Clone
Right.
Wars, but I still understood the episode just fine.
Sure, yeah,
without
you don't
having
have
that
to know the
yeah.
Clone Wars lore. It just adds to it. Yeah.
So the shame is mitigated by excitement that when I can get, I've just escaped from the Spice Mines at Kessel.
Oh, good,
So
good.
soon I hope I can get back to my project, my challenge to try to finish up Clone Wars as I'm watching the rest of the
Excellent.
Mandalorian.
Very good, very good.
Good deal.
All right, Greedo, what do you think?
This episode, I mean, it was great. It was a little short, I thought, for everything that happened in it. Trying to think, the middle section, before we got to the action, big action set piece, felt rushed. Like they kind of jumped. I wasn't sure if time was supposed to be passing in between or not, because it was anyway. That was my only thing, was it was a little short, but everything else about it was great. And it's not a spoiler, I guess, to say Titus Welliver was in it. And that was for me, that was awesome. I had no idea he was going to be in it. I hadn't heard that at all. And that was fantastic. So that made the whole episode for me. And then it was just really well done. So you definitely the second best episode of the season so far, I think.
Second best, okay. To me, it was my favorite episode of the season thus far. As much as I loved the first episode of the season, this one I like better. I don't know. There was overall the feel of it, the characters that were introduced, just the overall plot, the way they started moving the plot forward a little bit more directly at this point, I enjoyed. But yeah, overall, I loved it. I just thought it was fantastic. And this is just, again, not to get into spoilers, but this is something I've been waiting for quite a while, especially since we've heard, the announcements of certain characters that are going to be appearing this season and so on and so forth. So to finally have a little bit of that paid off, I really enjoyed it, and it was well worth the wait. So yeah, definitely 2 big thumbs up. Yes, right over the shoulder there.
Yeah.
So all right. So here goes the obligatory spoiler warning. So from here on out, if you haven't watched it, turn it off and then come back and watch later. All right.
We probably won't publish this for another 3 weeks. So.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be up in
everybody
January.
will have seen it.
So okay, so let's
spoilers from here on out.
Let's jump into the episode. Again, it was called this is chapter 11, The Heiress, and it picks up much like between episodes 1 and 2 from this season. We literally, it's just an immediate continuation. There's no time passage. They ended last episode on their way to Trask. They start this episode coming into a hard landing at Trask. So that, we basically we've got a linear story going right now with no particular time passing. Anyway, so basically, they basically come into Trask. They have a typical, Mandalorian style landing with this piece of junk Razor Crest, which is getting worse and worse by the episode,
Right.
and it ends up actually this time like the worst case scenario. It actually just plummets into the ocean. So there's that, and leave it
And
to
we got the cool
to,
cameo from the freight walker from Solo.
Yeah, that was really cool. Yeah, the Freight
Mm.
Walker was awesome. So that's basically where the episode starts out. And I'm terrible with the name, but the Frog Lady gets reunited
Frog
with
Lady.
The
Frog
passenger.
Lady.
That's the
They have a
name.
Passenger. Yeah,
Frog Lady.
Frog Lady. She gets reunited with her, mate or whatever, and then and they basically start the plot from there by Mando asking her mate, I was told you could lead me to more of my kind and things like that, and we kind of go from there. So from this
And
point,
the big lead is right over there in that bar right there.
yeah, I know that's the big
right there.
Yeah,
The bar you would have walked
Yeah.
into anyway. You didn't even tell him who to talk to or anything. Just it's over there in the bar.
It's just over there in the bar. There's some guy in there.
It's like, what a ripoff!
That's awesome. And we get one quick shot of a hooded figure who is yet to be revealed at this point in the episode, of course. Yeah, watching Mandalorian, yes, right there. And then once he notices her, she kind of slides back into the background and is gone again. So she's not currently revealed at that point. Okay, so from this point on, how does everybody feel about the feel and the kind of where this episode is going and how it starts out?
Good dark.
Gundar. I thought I liked not having a time jump. I like that you pointed that out. That it's just picks up immediately where the last one left off, and I like the Solo reference. Having loved that movie, and I also liked.
It was too dark.
I know. It was not too dark. I also liked the Razor Crest being so beat up and just getting ready to fall apart.
Yeah.
That was kind of in the tradition of great Star Wars ships, that are on their last legs.
Right. They're about to kick the bucket any minute.
Yeah, always. So I enjoyed that, but I begin to feel like there was something really important coming up, even though I had no idea that this episode was going to start introducing references to the Clone Wars. I kind of had an inkling then, because he's looking for other Mandalorians, and so I thought it's got to be in this episode that he starts to meet people that are crossovers. So it was kind of cool to lead into that way. But in terms of the other episodes leading up to that, the fact that you didn't get a time jump, it feels like everything's a lot more compressed now. Like maybe the plot is really moving along more quickly towards things that are going to be critical for the overall storyline. So that's cool to keep moving that way.
Absolutely. So Greedo?
Yeah, great so far. I loved the tension of the crash landing. That was done really well. Anytime they have a sequence that they need to deliver on, they do such a good job with the art, the visuals, the music, the sound effects. I don't know who's doing that stuff anymore. I'm behind on all that, but I'm assuming it's not Ben Burtt anymore. I know he's handed off Skywalker Sound to some people. And but whoever is doing all that sequence was great. It was kind of like the dropship sequence from Aliens or something.
Right.
And I love the little touch that they, that was nice and easy or whatever. And of course, we also got the reference to the almost there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They continue to throw the dialogue in it. It could be very annoying, but again, this is one of those things that this is the show. This is the way. This is the show. They've already shown they're going to do this. They're going to throw in constant Easter eggs and references and recycled dialogue in a new way.
No problem with that.
Yeah,
I
I laughed at it. I thought it was great. I mean,
to me, it's not
um,
done in such a gratuitous way that it makes it, annoying or
well, yeah,
heavy-handed.
a person who didn't know Star Wars and Mandalorian was their first Star Wars thing wouldn't know
Yeah,
the difference.
No,
they
they
would
don't
know the
know.
difference one way or
So
the other.
yeah,
Yeah.
it
And it's
isn't
not like
like
they do.
they're
It's not like they deliver a line of dialogue and then stop and wait
yeah.
for a reaction from the.
Yeah.
It's like, did you get that?
Yeah,
They don't
it's
do
not like they
that.
created a whole family so you could say that's your uncle talking or something.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
it's something ridiculous like that. But anyway, I loved that. I bust out laughing at that, and the touch of the ship, keeling over into the water was great, and
Yeah.
the solo freight walker was awesome. Um, there's just great things in almost every frame of the show every week. The only critiques are, does the timing work? Does the stuff we talked about last week, Trader, the kind of stuff like, is the story moving? Are we stuck? Is there
Right.
too much Baby Yoda? Is the
Is it going
humor
too
on
slow?
point?
Are we going
Or
to get there? Yeah.
is
Did
the
I
humor
just hear
too
you
much?
say, is there too much Yoda?
Oh yes, we had a lot of
Yeah,
discussion
we
about
definitely
that.
had a
How could
discussion
that
about that.
be?
Yes.
How could that
We
be a
did-
complaint?
I don't know. You tell me when Baby Yoda belches twice in one episode, and one is a close-up. You tell me if there's too much Baby Yoda or not. I mean, it's
It
getting
can
into Gremlins
never be
2 territory here. What is he gonna? Is he gonna dress up in a top hat like the frog from WB or whatever, and use
Yeah.
a cane and dance around? Would that be too much for you? Come on, get real.
Uh,
It has
Uh,
not gone. It has not gone that far. No.
No,
Baby
it has
Yoda
not.
no,
It has not.
Baby Yoda is just fine. There's never been too much Baby Yoda. So,
Okay.
nope. That's just take that off the list right now. It's
Okay.
taken from.
it's
gone.
off the invisible list. All right. So from there, the Mandalorian goes into this bar, and thank you, baby.
Yeah, where the secret bar where the Mandalorians were
the
hiding
secret
in
special.
plain sight, walking
And
around
anyway,
all their
so
armor.
he goes in and starts talking to this guy who works there. And he gets this chowder for Baby Yoda, speaking of, and
Right.
we have yet another veiled alien reference, as this octopus is inside the chowder and it jumps out literally like a face hugger right
Finally
on
got
to,
a face hugger.
right
Great.
onto Baby Yoda's
Don't
face.
play with your
The
food.
Mandalorian finally removes with his knife. But anyway, so this ultimately, this guy talks to this guy, and he finally figures out, okay, yeah, I can take you to where the guys like your kind are. It's just a short, boat ride or whatever he tells them. And these are the Quarren, if you remember this, the guys with like the squid faces that appeared all through different Star Wars fandom. Anyway, so next we kind of get to what is he going to do with Baby Yoda? Because obviously, well, actually, no, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. He takes Baby Yoda with him. He's still in the big carrier. They get on the ship, and they're headed out across the sea. So, Greedo, tell us about this next scene and what you thought of it on the ship itself.
I thought we were rid of Baby Yoda for a moment there, and it made me smile like this. But no, I'm just kidding. Of course they're Quarren, right? Is that what they're called?
Yeah, the Quarren.
I keep thinking of the creatures from Pirates of the Caribbean or whatever it is.
Yeah.
the squid face guy from that or whatever.
Davy Jones.
Yeah, because Davy Jones. Because once you do the CGI, it kind of reminds me more of that than of the.
It looks very similar. Yeah.
Mask from Jedi.
Right.
But anyway, so yeah, they betray the Mandalorian. They said something about they were baiting some creature or something. I missed that
Yeah,
part.
he said, have you ever watched
really
one of
fast.
these things feed? He said, if you
Yeah,
have
and
you ever watched one of these
they open
feed,
the
something
floor of
to
the
see.
boat and
Yeah.
they drop a bunch of tuna in, and this thing is bubbling, and they say, "Oh, once more," and they just kick Baby Yoda into
Yeah, just
the
out of
water.
nowhere, just boom.
The child.
Yeah.
And they kick him into the water, and the creature comes up, and of course, typical Star Wars, it has 8 million mouths and teeth and everything,
Yeah.
and swallows him whole in the
swallows it up.
carrier. And the Mandalorian, without pausing at all, I mean, you think he might just go, "Ugh, well, you got to find a new mission, but instead he jumps in the water. And then we get another reference when they close the grid over him and he's hanging onto the grid under the water and they're stabbing him with stuff. And it's just like really a cutscene from Jedi, right? Where Luke was hanging from the in this Rancor pit, and also Luke grabbing the door in Jabba's palace too, and then pushing him away. But really reminiscent of that deleted scene that we've all seen parts of and pictures from. And so that's a deep cut, like a deleted scene.
Sure, yeah.
And anyway, this is when the Mandalorian crew shows up out of nowhere and bails him out. And again, we get this recurring theme of the Mandalorian is not a superhero. He gets his butt kicked on a regular basis. And if it wasn't for other characters just being worse than him at things, like they were worse than him at ambushing and everything and getting help sometimes, he would be dead 100 times over. But he's just more competent and more consistent, has more resources than most of the people he's going up against. And again, but this time, you know, he trusted the wrong people. But these new characters show up to bail him out, and somebody else go into these new guys.
Okay, so the new guys.
Let Trader go into them, because you're the Clone Wars expert.
So the new guys are basically 3 more Mandalorians who literally use their jetpacks to fly in and, you know, rescue him at the last minute kind of thing. The leader of these 3 is Bo-Katan. Full name Bo-Katan Kryze, but yeah, she goes by Bo-Katan, and she and
dropping the knowledge.
That just shows you the family that she's from if you're familiar with Clone Wars. But she's obviously, those of you who are familiar with Clone Wars, she was in several of the late season episodes of that, including the final season. She even possessed the Darksaber at one time. Which we'll get to that here in a minute, but then, which is actually why she's on this planet at this point. But they basically fly in, save the day. They get rid of all the Quarren. They pull Mandalorian out after they release the crate, the grid or whatever. They pull him out, and then he tells them, "Hey, there's somebody else in there." So I'm on it, and she jumps down in there, not Bo-Katan, but the other one. She jumps down in, and, you know, a couple minutes later, she comes back with Baby Yoda, basically.
And they avoid giving us an underwater battle scene, and which makes sense, you know.
Yeah, they did it.
Nobody really wanted to see that. It showed you enough to imply that
you
handle herself.
You can tell what happened exactly.
And
so
for
that
some
was
reason,
done.
her armor worked underwater, and Mando's didn't.
That was cool.
But
yeah, that was interesting.
Maybe she just was prepared and held her breath or something. But
right. So anyway, so for me, this was an amazing scene. Just as a big Clone Wars fan as I am, and a Bo-Katan fan, you know, to see her mask, as you can see over Greedo's shoulder there, see her mask in live action now, and that character. And what's really cool, at least I thought it was a great touch, is that Katie Sackhoff, the actress playing that, is also the same lady who voiced the character in the Clone Wars and in Rebels. So I thought that was fantastic to actually have the same actress. And those of you who aren't familiar with her, she actually played Starbuck in the reboot of Battlestar Galactica.
So she was so wonderful in that.
Yeah, she was fantastic in that too. So yeah, it was really good to see her in Star Wars now as a live action character. So yeah, so I love that episode.
Who are the other 2 Mandalorians?
The names I don't know. They were just introduced for this. They weren't like recurring characters.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they weren't recurring. It was just Bo-Katan. So they were just her, you know, whatever you want to call her fellow soldiers. Correct. Yeah, they're just for this episode, I guess. And so,
the Sabine Wren rumors were wrong.
Obviously, yeah, because we thought that the hooded, cloaked figure at the beginning, which was shown in the original trailer, was going to be Sabine Wren, but it was not, because it was actually the girl there that you see there on the left hand side. So basically, this leads to an interesting situation when the first thing that Bo-Katan does after the danger's over, well, all 3 of them basically, they just take their helmets off. And immediately, Mandalorian's like, "Hey, you're not Mandalorian because if
Where
you
did
were
you
a
get that
true
armor?
Mandalorian, you don't take your helmet off ever. And they're like, so of course Bo-Katan defends her, stance, saying, look, this, this is this armor, and I'm Mandalorian. This has been in my family for generations. And then what's also interesting, another Clone Wars reference is the male character leans over and says he's one of them. And if you know what he's talking about, and they did ultimately say he's part of the Watch, and what they're referring to is Death Watch, and that is sort of the, I don't know what you want to call it, like the puritanical sort of
Extremists,
the extremists of the Mandalorian culture that think that they should go back to their warrior caste days, and all non-Mandalorians need to be gotten rid of, and almost like a pure race society type thing. So they're thinking that Mandalorian is a part of that group. Anyway, the whole scene ends up ending with him saying, basically peace out. Mandalorian just gets Baby Yoda, is like thanks, bye, and just flies off. Because he clearly at this point, even though they just saved his butt, he doesn't trust them because he thinks they're not true Mandalorians. So that basically leads us to the next part. And if someone wants to take it from here.
Could I ask one question about that part? Was Death Watch as extremist an organization in the Clone Wars as the remnants seem to be that we see in this show? Did they have this tradition of not removing their helmets? And
no,
they never.
So that's kind of evolved.
I think that's a creation of this show. Yeah. That was never mentioned in Clone Wars.
Are you sensing now?
And they did show a lot of those characters in Death Watch without their helmets on. They took their helmets off regularly.
Okay.
So
Death Watch was an invention of a politician from Mandalore, and Pre Vizsla was his name, right?
Pre Vizsla, yeah.
And it was a way. It was a way to manipulate the public by inspiring them, saying some of us haven't given up. Some of us are fighting for the dominance that Mandalore used to have. And so it was like a populist movement. And harkening back to their old traditions and stuff.
We used to be these tough warriors, and now they want us to be these pacifists.
But they didn't necessarily believe in the ideals of Death Watch.
Right.
They kind of used it. So they may not have been the ones to take it and run with it, to do the whole "don't take your helmet off" the creed and all that stuff in the Foundlings. I think someone that picked up the pieces, and also they didn't come out and call it Death Watch. They called it Child of the Watch.
Yeah, he said he's Child of the Watch.
But we know from the first season that it was Death Watch insignias on the Mandalorians that rescued Din Djarin when he was a child. So it makes sense that because the last we saw them, well, I won't go into that because Gundark hasn't seen it, but suffice to say, some of Death Watch could have survived into the present of the Mandalorian timeline.
Right.
And the Mandalorians in this show, at least the Watch in this show that our Mandalorian is a member of, seem like they're true believers. It doesn't seem like it's a movement that was just used as a political ploy or whatever.
Right.
They're true believers.
And Death Watch itself may have been just a pale imitation of an actually more extremist side, that they were either referencing back to, or that existed but wasn't as popular, or wasn't. Death Watch got a notoriety because they were using propaganda, they were using terrorist strikes, they were using all this stuff to advance their agendas, to make themselves relevant. The Creed group, the Watch, or whatever, that could be a spinoff, or it could be adopting really old ways that Death Watch was claiming to espouse, but really wasn't that interested in. They just wanted to win, Anyway.
Right.
But Pre Vizsla was Jon Favreau, right?
Yes.
So do you sense that in introducing now a conflict between different groups of Mandalorians with different beliefs, that they're leading towards the being able to take the mask off of our Mandalorian?
Could be.
Yes.
Yeah,
in a word, yes.
I can see them leading up to that.
That's the first thing I thought of was, here we go. They have to change his character. Every character has to go through a journey.
Yeah.
What are the chances he's going to stay true to this creed the whole time? He would just be the same character he started as. I don't necessarily see that happening. Plus, they mentioned we need to unite our people and retake Mandalore, and he's against that. Well, he's against it now, but he has to go somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Beyond all this Baby Yoda stuff, beyond whatever, he has to have a personal. And I think they're hinting or just laying it out. The show isn't really good at hinting; they just they lay it out very obviously. I think that's going to be his future arc, maybe, unless they just something happens and they change plans. But
Yeah.
he's going to end up returning to Mandalore, uniting the people, and who knows who will end up with the Darksaber and whose deeds will. But it could end up being a conflict of philosophies. The modern Mandalorians, and he almost be like a dark age, extremist philosophy. But anyway.
Yeah. So, and one other connection with Clone Wars is, as Gundark mentioned, Jon Favreau voiced Pre Vizsla in Clone Wars. He also, if you go back to, I believe it was the 3rd episode of season 1, the ones with the Death Watch symbol, he also voiced the main guy on that to kind of also draw that similarity. So it's the same voice as Pre Vizsla that he used for Pre Vizsla with this character to kind of also kind of make that same sort of connection.
That's interesting.
I like how they think that stuff out.
And I will say, I really liked that. I really liked this whole thing they did because this has been a major conflict for anybody who's watched the media, and knowing that Filoni is involved. It's like, how did they come up with these Mandalorians now that don't ever take their helmet off and everything? It's interesting, it's cool, but how does that gel with what we know about them? And I think in one episode they laid the groundwork to kind of sidestep all that, and they can go into it if they want to, but more than likely they'll just probably kind of gloss over it, and I think it'll work. And let's be honest, show your hands if you want to get Pedro Pascal out of the mask more than I mean, can we? I'm used to it now. I love the Mandalorian. His voice, helmet is the character. He does whoever's in there does great body acting and everything.
Body acting
and
to
directing and setting the emotion. Perfect. But you got Pedro Pascal.
But it's time
at some point. It doesn't have to be now.
But we need to move on at some point.
Yeah, if you're introducing an element where he can get out of that mask, at least take it off like they're doing. Put it on when he's ready to kick some ass or whatever.
Right.
Then you got to. I mean, you just have to.
Exactly.
And it'll be a whole new. We kind of said this last year. There could be a whole new chapter of the show. Where you change it up and you're. Anyway.
Right. So we get back to the sort of wharf area. He lands and it is immediately accosted by the Quarren saying, "Hey, you killed my brother, and we're gonna take you out." And he's like, "Look, I don't want any trouble." In another typical sort of Western type scene, "Look, I don't want any trouble. Just let me pass." They're not going to let that happen, of course. And then yet again, the 3 Mandalorians swoop into the rescue, and they come flying in. So they're clearly determined to continue a relationship with the Mandalorian. So they swoop in and they end up just taking out all the Quarren.
Yeah,
and then
it's samurai versus fisherman, and it's not pretty.
Yeah, it's not really a fair fight.
No, it's over in about 3 seconds or less.
Literally, yeah, just boom, 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 and it's done.
It's like the Mandalorian ordered Jimmy John's. All the Quarren are dead. He has the Jimmy John.
Exactly. So
I did want to mention before you move on the scene where he gets back to the shore and looks back at the sunset, and they blow up the Quarren's original ship that they came from, and they all jetpack up into the atmosphere.
Oh yeah, that was a great scene. Yeah,
one of my favorite shots on the show that I've ever seen.
Fantastic. Yeah,
and just saying, one of my constant things that I wish for from Star Wars is more art, just more and more art, more shots, even if they're only a few seconds long and leave you wanting more. I wish they would dwell on them a little bit longer, but that was a brilliant shot. And that's one thing I adore about this show is that they connect the art to what you see on the screen, and you can see that in the artwork that they show at the end of the credits.
Oh, absolutely.
They're very much married, and there was no need for that shot really in such a fast-paced episode. You could have skipped that, but it was great. It showed beauty and destruction, which is grace and destruction, which is what these new characters kind of represent, you know,
Can they
in a couple
symbolize?
different
Yeah,
ways. Yeah.
exactly.
But anyway, it was a fantastic shot. So moving on. And then all the stuff happened on the dock with the shootout and everything.
Right. And so at this point, the Mandalorian agrees to kind of join forces with this group to help them basically take over an Imperial ship that's going to be leaving soon.
And I want to point out, they all go in the bar, the top secret bar right there on the wharf, and they just hang out in their armor. So all he had to do is hang out for a day, and they would have probably been in there drinking.
Anyway.
Yeah, it's like, but anyway. All the stuff with the passenger and everything.
So now to the point where I was getting ahead of myself earlier, he has to do something with the child, so he goes back to the Frog Lady's residence, and he asked them to watch over the child. He'll be back, and in a really funny moment, he was, literally handing the child over, and he's like, and I want you to mind yourself. I want you to behave. You know what I'm talking about. He doesn't want him don't keep eating her eggs.
Right.
Maybe you don't know. He's not supposed to do that.
Genocide is bad.
Exactly.
It's very bad.
He knows Dad doesn't want him to do that.
Exactly. So now we get to probably one of my favorite moments of the episode from this point on. I mean, I loved it to this point, but it got even better because I'm just a sucker, and I'm sure I speak for both of you on this too, especially Greedo. Anytime that you bring out original gangster stormtroopers.
Oh yeah, it's like you're reminded of where you are. Yeah.
This is Star Wars. This is the meaning of Star Wars.
It's like, there they are. They had them this whole time. Where have they been?
It could be the worst episode ever, and then an original stormtrooper walks in. I'm like, yes, this is the greatest thing ever.
The only time that didn't work was the Star Wars Holiday Special.
Even Stormtrooper couldn't say that.
No. I still remember the look on Harrison Ford's face when he knocked the guy off the treehouse or whatever, and then and it zoomed in on him like, it's Han Solo. Oh, and he just tossed a Stormtrooper. It's so cool. But don't get used to it, because now Lumpy.
Now
Grandpa watching disco porn.
Yeah, disco porn.
So yeah, that failed. That was the only time the Stormtrooper I can remember just literally fell on its face. But I digress.
So
it was a cool ship that they're in.
That was a really well
ship.
designed. Yeah.
Now, what was that ship? What was it?
It was a weapons hauling.
Yeah, it was just basically
freighter.
like a Imperial freighter.
A freighter. Okay.
For hauling
why it was
weapons
there, I
like
don't
that.
understand. Like, is this?
Why is it on that
trading
planet?
in weapons?
Right.
It was carrying a lot of weapons, so and is that where the
weapons looked in good shape too? Not like they were salvaged from somewhere. Like they never got used. They're probably from an Imperial stronghold or armory somewhere. But how they ended up here and why they're this again, plot and making sense of the plot is not the strong suit of the show, and logistics. Because I'll get into it as we go along, but why the Imperials are here and why those rebel pilots can't find any Imperials. They have to randomly go around checking IDs.
They're randomly checking out in
sublight.
The vastness of
you
space.
Can get from this point in sublight to right where all these Imperials are smuggling shitloads of weapons in the public eye. But you have to stop people
not even trying to
basically
hide it.
On the street in subspace. Where's your ID? You might be an Imperial. Yeah, why don't you freaking look over here?
Over there, where there's like an entire ship full of them.
They got crap loads of weapons that they're going to use on you. But no worries. Sure, they have an ID.
Keep
they
checking
have
an
ID. They don't mean any harm. But yeah, it's like, how can you guys find them? They're literally everywhere. Did we see
literally everywhere?
Yeah. But anyway, that stuff's weird, and then the fact that the weapons all looked new and stuff was kind of weird, and then the idea that Bo-Katan is going on this, she tells the Mandalorian because they have something that belonged to her that she wants back.
Right.
Ding ding ding, Darksaber. We all figure, right? Moff Gideon. Well, I'm sorry, but they said it's implied that these Mandalorians have been hitting these shipments all along. They said, is it the same pirates that have been hitting our ship? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but so these guys have the stuff in the computer program to make the jump to what they call a fleet. So how hard is it to find Moff Gideon? You know what I mean? Why does she have to come here? And then she's trying to interrogate the. I'm getting ahead, but the plot makes no sense when you think about it. You're just not supposed to think about it. But why does she need to go through all that? Why does she need to interrogate this guy? It all should just be plain. I mean, if they're going to a fleet and they're going at random, just follow them, you know, or just look in their computer, or just do anything.
Yeah.
There's no, it can't be a secret, right? Just like the secret bar that's there, you know, on the strip. The Mandalorian's hanging out. He's gonna go to a planet. There's gonna be like, you know, millions of Yodas and baby Yodas running around.
Exactly. There's literally gonna be millions.
View. Yeah, it's like, and he's never heard of Jedi either. You know, like, oh, I've heard of them, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what those are.
Yeah.
Some kind of
there's a lot of weirdness. They're doing a good job of explaining it, but not so much when you put it under. It's why you gotta just let it go. I say all this because I'm not the letting it go type.
Because you're not letting it go.
But no, I am. Give me, look at him. Just look at him.
You've made the child sad.
Calm your mind.
Yeah.
Clear your mind.
No, I am letting it go because I understand the type of show we've got going now. It's been a year and a handful of episodes, and there is a formula. This is another episode that to me showed me to this point. There may be changes because we've heard rumors, but to this point, there is a formula that they're following for, you know, Act 1, Act 2, Chapter 3, you know, of each season is following the same exact. If you look at what was Chapter 3, it was the Sin. Where we brought back the Imperials again. We had conflict again. We had original stormtroopers again. We set something in motion that was going to carry on to the end of the season. We're doing the same stuff. You know, Razor Crest trashed in episode 2. You know, a journey with creatures, Jawas, frog ladies, spiders. So anyway, I understand the show at this point. So I am letting it go, but I am going to point it out. Because it is obvious, and it could have been done better.
You've been talking about it for 10 minutes. You letting it go.
Yes, this is me letting it go. Where am I supposed to let it go, Gundark?
To let it go.
It's a podcast, not a pod people cast. Okay, we can criticize. We can criticize the holy, you know, child vehicle. It's fine. I'm gonna keep watching it, you know, and I buy all their crap. So what else do they want? But anyway, that's the, you know, if you're gonna criticize anything, the art, the look, the direction, the music, the actors, everything is brilliant, but the plotting is consistently the Achilles heel. But do you need it? They're making a compelling argument for the fact that you don't even need it. Why are you guys so quiet?
I'm just waiting for round 2. All of them.
Was that all of it?
Oh Lord. Okay. So now that we're completely off the rails,
we are not off the rails. We're talking about this show.
Anyway, so
Tell them, Luke.
And at this rate, we'll have a 4-hour episode.
It does a body good.
All right, so they basically try to hijack this Imperial vessel. We get a pretty good action scene of throwing stormtroopers off the edge of the ship. They manage to break into the ship and now enter, as Greedo will gleefully say, Titus Welliver, aka
Bosch. The Man in Black from Lost.
Yes, exactly.
I swear this show is here to like triple the prices of some of these people at conventions. That's
I
what
know.
this show is here for. Like Katie Sackhoff, just her character going to live action, probably doubled her price. You know,
I'm sure.
In one
exactly.
day. And Titus Welliver, Star Wars fans may not watch Bosch, but as soon as he's an Imperial officer in this, he can sit back and sign stuff.
Exactly.
Photo ops the rest of his life if he wants. Not that he wants to,
so they infiltrate this ship. A couple of really amazing shootouts occur, which are really well done.
And they go back to the heat vision reference again. I like how they keep using that.
Yeah.
And
I like
set
how
it up earlier, and
they're actually utilizing. Like last week, we got the first really exclusive use of the flamethrower on the arm, and now this week we've got more reference to the heat vision and things like that. Kind of how that armor actually works and what is the purpose of it, other than just, is it just to look cool, or does it actually perform a function? And it does. Yeah, so we've got basically the Imperial officer, played by Titus, calling for well, he's not calling for reinforcements yet. He's basically calling to the back of the ship saying, hey, you need to handle what's going on, because they're radioing back and forth saying, hey, we're being attacked. It's the same pirates. And one of the funny lines in the whole thing was, well, how many are there? Well, there's got to be at least 10 or 12. I don't know.
Right.
And then the guy's
four.
he's like, no, there's 4 life signs, sir. And he's like, well, wait, they're Mandalorians. And then
not only that, but the Mandalorian himself pretty much did nothing for the first half of the attack. He just watched from the back.
Right.
And the core 3 there worked together as a team and were just mowing folks down mercilessly. It was pretty sad.
Exactly. But I love the sort of the mood change when they find out that they're Mandalorians. They immediately are like, oh crap, close the door immediately, seal off everything.
And here was another one of my favorite references: the Imperial officer in the cargo hold saying, they said, which doors? And all of them, all of them, all of them, all of them. I thought that had to be a reference. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
it shows that someone somewhere appreciates
someone else thinks about that.
I do.
Just us.
Right.
I love it. So anyway, so they temporarily contain the Mandalorians, or so they think. Because the Imperial officer then calls back, says, okay, well, what's the situation? Well, we've got them contained. Really, where? In the main cargo hold. The where?
The cargo control room.
They finally realize they just hit the button and open up
That was a wonderful
the bay door, and they all go flying out into the atmosphere. So now, of course, the Mandalorians go back. They start seeing all the goods there, start equipping themselves, and then meanwhile, our Imperial officer starts calling for reinforcements, and he's actually reaching out to, at this point, Moff Gideon. So for the first time, we see Moff Gideon this season, and it's just in hologram form, as you see there, but
Moff Fring.
He basically tells him, it's too late at this point. You've already lost the ship. There's no point in trying to come save you. So you know what you have to do. And obviously at this point it becomes a suicide mission. The Imperial officer immediately takes his blaster out, shoots both pilots.
Which let's give kudos to those pilots. Like I said, that group of 3 Imperial officers was like the boarding school for just disdainful looking Imperial officers. They were all perfectly cast. They had resting officer face. All 3 of them.
Resting Imperial officer face.
They really did. This is just kind of a small example of it, but they were worse. They were even worse.
Now I gotta say something about that moment when Bosch's character takes the ship down. I was just
Imperial Homicide Division.
I was so shocked by that. I guess because it's so against the casting, his typecasting.
Mm-hmm.
You thought he was gonna be a recurring character or something?
Well, yeah, or
show a good side.
He was not a good side, but maybe a savvy. He would have a savvy way to fight back and maybe get out of it. I was just shocked that he was so gung-ho that immediately it's like, okay, I'm crashing this thing.
Yep, you're right. Boom. Yeah, they're dead, and I'm immediately trying to crash it. Yep.
To see that kind of extremist devotion from him was just like, okay,
I think it shows there's been a very interesting story going on with Gus Fring. And the chicken franchise with the Empire and how the guys that are left are either the Clients guys who look like they're not into it and they're barely hanging on and they're a mess, or they're Moff Gideon's guys who he's already shown them somehow in some kind of interesting story that we missed that this stuff is real now.
Yeah.
We are not quitting. And we're, a lot of people died on Endor, and you're next. You either win or you die. And long live the Empire says everything. They're not
Yeah.
ready to give up on the Empire, whatever that may mean. Now he's using it for his own ends, but he's got a core group that
Fanatical.
set up to
devoted.
die
Fanatical,
before they're
exactly.
taken. Yeah.
Mhm.
Can you imagine any Imperials in the original trilogy choosing death over surrender?
No,
Not really. I
never.
mean, I might be
Yeah.
forgetting something, but no, they just weren't like that. They were always surprised that the rebels were fighting back. Like in Rogue One, they captured that so effectively. Like, what, we're under attack? I
Yeah.
thought this was going to be easy. I thought this was an
Mhm.
easy lifestyle choice, that
Right.
being an Imperial was selling out and being comfortable is what it's supposed to be. But anyway, so it's definitely something's going on there where he's got a core group that are brainwashed or that know you have nowhere to go. If you
Mhm.
get captured, you'll be killed. He's got them convinced he'll be killed by them. If you come back and you fail, you'll be killed by me. And there's something that they believe in, that either death is inevitable or it's worth dying for.
Mhm.
I don't know. But I don't know that they'll go into all those details, but I sure would like to know, because they've been good at putting these things in there you think they're not going to follow up on it, and then they actually do. So it would be kind of cool to find out why some of these characters are acting the way they did. Why did he off the client, and his men like that? I
Mhm.
still don't quite understand that. And so anyway, I've been waiting for that episode where we get some explanation of how the Imperial Remnant or the New Empire or whatever it is actually works, and why
Mhm.
people are doing what they're doing, why they're sticking to their guns, and why they haven't all abandoned ship,
Yeah.
and
I
fled
think
at this
that'd be
point.
an interesting, almost its
And
own show in a
yeah,
way.
why did he
But
have an Emperor lightning capsule in his tooth?
right.
The Force lightning,
Yeah.
and that's
Oh my
creepy. How many people have
God.
that? Did he know
Yeah.
too
Yeah.
much? What's going on? And he was willing to do it, and he was willing. I mean, he just jumped in that seat. He killed those two guys. He jumped in that seat and was flying it down. But and that
That
was
is
another
one.
thing that. Go ahead. I'll
That is
stop.
one of the cool things that, about this show, that kind of coincides with the development of whatever group that is, that the spinoff from the Death Watch that our Mandalorian is an example of. That there's been evidently a lot of evolution in the different groups since the period of Clone Wars, and now since the fall of the Empire, where you're getting more extremist groups. It seems like are breaking off and developing their own followings, and
Mhm.
that makes the storyline a lot more complicated. It almost seems like it's getting into kind of, it's maybe could head into Clone Wars complicated territory, because that was
Mhm.
one of the things that impressed me as I'm watching Clone Wars, is how complicated the world building and the politics started to get, in ways that the prequels couldn't even scratch the surface of. So
Right.
it seems
Mhm.
like there's a lot of possibility for stuff like that from this show's going on in the background that we don't yet have fleshed out.
Right.
And we have consistently been seeing events from the fringe, from people hanging out in seedy bars, from people with the undesirable dirty jobs, from the scavengers, from the bounty hunters, from the human
Mhm.
traffickers, whatever you want, the underground fight runners, gangsters. So we may never know more than those characters know. We may be waiting for one of those exposition dumps, probably from uh, who's Carl Weathers' character. When he comes
Grief
back,
cargo.
Grief,
Yeah.
yeah,
grief.
Grief Karga. I fully expect him to just give us a huge exposition dump in the most awkward way.
'Cause-
Mando, come here. Let me dump all this on
Mando.
you.
Hey, Mando.
If you're hearing this, no, but anyway, so it makes sense that we have clueless characters here that are only, they don't really care about this stuff until it affects them. They're not actively investigating it. So we may be interested in what the Empire is doing, but they're just trying to stay out of the way of the Empire, and they're trying to stay out of the way of the Republic, even though we're very interested. What is the Republic doing?
Mhm.
Uh what's going on? But these characters aren't so much. They're just trying to make a living, and they've had a hard time. And you got that perspective from Tatooine of how people were celebrating, but it lasted all of 5
Yeah,
seconds.
Yeah.
yeah.
The new boss is as bad as the old one almost. and the chaos and everything that is left in the wake. So anyway, and I'm sure that's what Moff Gideon is selling, is security. That's always, fear breeds need for security, and people trade their freedom for that security. So I'm sure that's what his main thing is selling. But when you go to the fanatical level of these homicide and suicide, it's a different kind of empire than we've seen before. But so anyway, where were we? They were taking over the bridge, right? And he was going to crash the ship,
Right.
The Imperial officer. And so they take the bridge, and of course, Officer Welliver is defiant to the last and arrogant to the last. He even looks, just inconvenienced and fussy that they pull him out of the seat.
Exactly.
I love
How
his
dare
body
you
language.
not let me kill myself?
Yeah, I love that he didn't try to play a tough guy. He knew the role and he nailed it. It was great.
Yeah.
And of course, Bo-Katan constantly using her switchblade in this episode. She's real proud of that thing, and she puts it to his throat, and he commits imperial seppuku with the dark side lightning out of his tooth, or whatever, after giving the cryptic, what you'll never win speech or whatever he said. And miraculously, there's another, thing that's hard to believe in these shows, but somehow the imperial officer failed to crash the ship. It's like, this is a planet with 8 million miles of atmosphere, or he just took he's like, it's too uncomfortable to dive completely. It's very hard on my body, therefore I will dive at an angle, and eventually, efficiently, we will crash and die. And it gave them plenty of time to come in and stop it. And they pull up at the last second or whatever. It's like, and
fishing crash.
And during all this, the Mandalorians are like, imagine us, a squad of us with these weapons. So they're gonna throw down. There is a link here to the end of the season, probably, where there's going to be a throwdown between Gideon's Imperial forces and the Mandalorians.
Yeah.
Is it implying? Did you guys catch on to this? Is he still occupying Mandalore? Is Mandalore involved in this somehow? Is Gideon's base there?
I don't know.
I heard them talk about a
tell
fleet.
that.
Yeah, that would be
rendezvous with the fleet, but
Mm-hmm.
And I got the feeling maybe the fleet is almost doing like what the rebel fleet used to do, staying out of being identified, out of skirmishes until they build their strength. And that's why they're gathering the weapons. They're going to do a push.
And what exactly did Bo-Katan say that her goal was about Mandalore? To reunite her people, or what was her goal?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think she said retake the planet.
Retake the planet. So that implies it's under occupation.
That it's still under occupation.
She said they want to divide us, which implies that she believes that the whole extremist thing is an unnecessary, possibly even brought about by people who want to keep the Mandalorians at each other's throats. But she basically says we need to unite and retake the planet, and he says, well, the planet's cursed, which again, there's a weird doctrine here going on that is at odds with reality, and you have to wonder, I mean, are they brainwashed? What's going on? Is the children of the watch a cult, or what is it?
Right.
But then again, like I said, there's going to be a throwdown, and it's right now it's for the Darksaber. That's all she says. They have something I want back, and that's exactly what Moff Gideon said about Baby Yoda. You have something of mine. You have no idea how far I'm willing to go and how important it is to me. So we've got two characters that want different things. And we're going in speculation now, but that sets up an entire concept of once Bo-Katan figures out Moff Gideon wants the child, is she willing to trade that child for the Darksaber? Because the Darksaber could unite her people.
Yeah.
Interesting. I just not that. But so anyway, at that point, she asks the Mandalorian to come along. They're leaving. They take this. She said, we're taking this whole ship and getting out of here. And she says, come along. And it sounds like they're going to go throw down maybe now, or it's coming. And he says, nope, I have stuff I have to do. Where's the Jedi? And she says, Ahsoka Tano is on whatever planet she gave him.
I don't remember the name, but the fourth planet of the whatever system. Yeah.
Yeah. And she said, what do you know about Jedi? And he said, nothing. And so I have a feeling Ahsoka's not going to be what he would expect if he knew anything about Jedi. Right. Was the implication of that. And also might imply she's not happy to receive visitors also, because that is a recurring theme of Jedi, is that they go into isolation. They're not happy to see
they don't want to be found out. Yeah.
So anyway, to me, that has set up a signal that it's not going to go as planned. She's not going to be happy to see him. Anyway, so he jumps off the ship and says, I have to go do my own thing. And she says, it's an open invitation. So we've got all these threads everywhere, just like we do every
everything's
season.
going to tie together. I think, like you said, Agrito, it's like right now we're just going to focus on the Darksaber for the next episode or two, probably. But it's ultimately going to culminate, maybe by the end of the season, maybe next season, into more of like what Gundark was saying, more of a big fight versus, Empire, New Empire, whatever it's called, versus Mandalore.
Yeah, I get the feeling the Darksaber is only important for a symbol.
Right, I agree.
I think Moff Gideon, he uses it when he needs to, but I think he's got it as a symbol of power and a symbol of manipulation and all that. And she wants it not to cut someone's head off specifically, or because she's a badass with the Darksaber, but because she knows it can unite the people.
It's symbolic, yeah, and that's that's the way it was always referred to in the Clone Wars. It's a unifying symbol,
right,
for their people.
And so we have all these threads around. We have the frog people. We have the Marshal and the people of Tatooine that kind of know Mandalorian and trust him and have we have the Tusken Raiders that he has a good relationship
that he's now
with.
made friends with.
Yeah, we have Boba Fett, who looks like he's gone native and is a Tusken Raider, maybe. I was wondering if he was even in that episode with the mask on the whole time and took it off at the end, participated in all that.
Yeah.
So we have all these threads, just like we did in season 1, of disparate characters that are gonna pull together at some point, I think. The question is, are they going to go for more of an epic thing, or is it going to be more personal again? Set in a small setting. And I think one thing about the show that you can guess is they can project all these environments on that soundstage, but they can't necessarily go super grandiose with that stuff. There's a limit to that. That's the setting. So I still think these stories are going to stay personal for the time being, and they're not going to get to the epic level of a big Return of the Jedi throwdown. But I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But even the Crate Dragon thing, that was epic, but it was something that regular people would do.
Yeah.
Anyway, I won't go into all that. But what happens after that, Trader? Because I'm drawing a blank. He goes back for Baby Yoda.
Goes back to Baby Yoda. Yeah.
Right.
Baby Yoda's playing with the salamander children.
Playing with
He's still playing with his food. But he seems to be, it's almost like they're going, ribbit, ribbit, ribbit. Look, the value of life.
Yeah.
No, murder is wrong. This is why you don't murder. And he's like, oh, yeah. If you allow them to breed and grow, there's more food.
There's even more food. Yeah, bigger food.
Maybe murder immediately is wrong. But I thought that was a cool scene. And then you got your moment of cuteness when he has to reclaim the child, and the child doesn't want to leave the baby salamander that's his new friend, and he's trying to grab it.
Yeah, that was cool. Just more great puppeteering, I think.
Yeah.
Because it looked so real, the way it was just reaching.
And it was cute as hell. It was just cute as hell. Come on.
Yeah, it was great.
It was much better than belching Baby Yoda. We don't need that ever again.
Agreed.
Next Mando will be changing his diapers,
So they go back and to get on their ship to see if it's been fixed. So the Mon Calamari has fixed his ship. He's like, what, this is the best you can do on 1,000 credits? It looks like just a patchwork job from hell. It looks awful.
Which it was.
The guy just hands him the invoice. Here, just sign it.
Exactly. That was great. It's
Come on, dude, just sign the invoice.
This is the best you could do with 1,000 credits. He doesn't even say a word. He just hands him the thing. Like, just sign for it. So of course they take off, and you can see it's literally sputtering and spitting its way up, and literally as it goes into hyperspace at the final shot of the episode, like a big piece falls
off. You get
off,
the tie rim
floating through space.
The hubcap flying off.
Exactly. So that's where the episode ended.
And we had the creature attempting to eat.
Baby Yoda. Right. I forgot. Yeah, we did have
like Baby Yoda ended up eating it. So
yeah, they get into the cockpit, and the Mandalorian is basically cussing Mon Calamari. He was literally just disgusted. He's like, ugh, Mon Calamari. But yeah, there's this
shrimp.
Squid thing.
Why did it have to be shrimp?
Climbing up, and it lowers itself down like it's gonna jump onto the child, and the Mandalorian at the last second reaches back and just grabs it and kills it, and then the next thing you see is the child eating it. because there's nothing it won't eat.
Like
I mean,
most babies.
if it'll eat that spider out of the egg, like last week it'll eat
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah,
That
it
was
will eat
disgusting.
anything. Yeah.
So okay, so that wrapped up the Heiress. One final thought I want to mention on that. So because I don't want to fail to mention this, that was another episode directed by Bryce Dallas Howard.
Yeah.
And she did a phenomenal job. She's done a great job on the ones she's done so far. So I look forward to her. I was really hoping she would come back for this season, and she has. So yeah, I've enjoyed that. Next week, by the way, we have an episode directed by. Now I went blank. Mando, Carl Weathers.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
Carl Weathers is directing next week's episode.
Oh,
There's no name
cool.
for it released yet, but it does have Jon Favreau wrote it. Carl Weathers directed.
Cool.
Yeah, so that I'm looking forward
So
to that.
maybe he will return.
Mm-hmm.
Grief Karga will return in that episode.
I wonder if this episode will take up immediately again, and it will be arriving at this planet, or something will waylay him on the way to the planet. But in other words, it'll be a journey to get to the Jedi. Maybe
there's got to be
the
something
Jedi
in
till
between.
the next episode.
Yeah, it won't be like beginning of next episode.
We're not gonna go immediately. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yes, I had my Clone Wars fanboy moment when they did mention Ahsoka Tano. I was like, yes,
Greatest Star Wars character of all time.
No, I didn't say that.
But
talk about
in the top 10.
No, yeah, she is. But what I'm saying is the character development for that character was amazing. To go from absolutely despising a character to being one of my top 10 all-time favorites, that shows some development.
Here's your chance to go back to despising her. You don't know how this is going to turn out.
That is true. I'm sure I'll love it.
We're hoping for the best.
But all right. So before we completely wrap up, what we wanted to do, since we've been without a Gundark this week, or the last couple of weeks, we wanted to get your thoughts on episodes 1 and 2 from this season, the Marshal and the Passenger. So if you wanted to kind of just give us your brief thoughts on those.
I loved both of them. I know that having talked with Greedo about the Passenger episode, he thought that it lacked pacing, that it was dragged and was dull at points, but I thought it was if it had to be a filler episode, it was one that was really enjoyable for me. I liked the spider horror, having horrible arachnophobia, and I liked the alien reference, and I thought for a minute that Baby Yoda was actually going to eat an alien from an alien egg, and then it all turns into something different. So that surprised me. So I enjoyed that episode. The action sequences and the encounter with the Republic policemen in the X-wings. That was neat.
Great. Yeah.
But I really loved the first episode. I loved Timothy Oliphant as the Marshal. The work against the what was it? The Crate Dragon. Yeah, the destruction of the Crate Dragon was great. I kept, when I was watching that episode with Greedo, I just kept saying, "Oh golly, I hope Dune will be this good." Because we've got the new film version of Dune coming up, and I just hope that their stuff with the sandworms will be even a fraction as good as that action sequence was. That was so enjoyable. And I liked the new relationships developed with the Marshal and Tatooine, and the introduction of Boba Fett at the end of that episode. I'm wondering where he's going to come into the bigger story arc now. So far, I've loved everything I've seen this season. It's been really, really enjoyable for me. I'm so glad the show is back, and I'm looking forward to where it's going with its overall story arc, but I don't mind it having the standalone action episodes too. Are cool to me.
All right. Agreed.
Real quick, because this is something we did in both of our previous episodes. Rate episode 1 and 2 on a scale of 1 to 10.
And then we'll tell you what we chose after.
I give episode 1 probably a 9. I loved that episode. I give episode 2 maybe a 7. Episode 3 maybe a 9 again, and maybe an 8 to 9. I think episode 1 is my favorite so far.
Okay. Well, for episode 1, The Marshal, I rated that as an 8.5. And if I remember correctly, Greedo, you gave it an 8.
Yes.
Yeah. And then for The Passenger, we were considerably lower. I rated that, I think, around a 5.5.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And I think Greedo rated it as a 5.
Yes.
Yeah, I know
Yeah.
Greedo wasn't in it.
Which isn't an insult. I'm sorry.
No,
When you
again,
look-
that's the
scale
thing.
1 to
Yeah.
10, that's
If
right
you
in the
watch
middle.
our episode
Yeah.
on that, we didn't dislike the episode.
If you're swinging for the fences,
Mhm.
yeah, it's not the best rating you can get, but it's by no means
For what it
saying I
was, it
didn't
was great.
enjoy it.
Yeah.
But it's right in the middle of the road. It's not terrible. It wasn't great. But there was great elements to it. But
Yeah.
there was the stuff that should have been great or that could have been great wasn't quite there. And I went back and I even you're gonna hate me more than you do, Gundark, if you ever watch our first episode, because at the end I praised the first episode, The Marshal, but I said there's nothing there that makes me want to go back and watch again. I said the story, we were kind of criticizing the story a little bit, saying this show isn't really interested in pushing the story quote unquote forward. And you got to understand that about this show, that it's just about the journey. It is not, they're not going anywhere you want them to real fast. And so I was kind of criticizing that, but in a positive way. But I said, I really don't want to watch this episode again. Well, I was really wrong. I have to correct myself, because I went back and watched it in spite of myself and was drawn in immediately and enjoyed it for even more so than the first time, and saw all these things to appreciate. And so I think expectations are a lot of times your worst enemy, and Mandalorian premiere, they really delivered, and it was unfair of me to, but I was expecting a continuation from the end of last season, but they were in no hurry to even continue that story the first season. They spaced it out with all kinds of filler, but they did a phenomenal job, and I think my 8 was very criminally underrating it, probably at least an 8.5 or 9. But my scale is different, because I really think, The Empire Strikes Back is a 10, and I don't see anything that I can rate along with that, or 1 point under, but so to me, an 8 is a brilliant episode, really.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Nothing bad to say about it. So
I would say for this episode, I would rate this episode a 9. For me, the Heiress would be a 9.
I would go with an 8 again, but I would bump the Marshal up to an 8.5 probably, and this an 8 or 7.5. And the only reason was because it was so fast. The scenes where he meets the Mandalorians, then they're suddenly in the bar together. It goes from him rejecting them to them saving him again. They've saved him twice. Well, why is it more compelling the second time? And why does he sit down with him the second time? They saved his ass and the child the first time. You needed time to ruminate when a character makes a stand and changes his mind. Like that scene from The Sin, where he goes and sits in his cockpit and he sees the thing that reminds him of the child. That was brilliantly done, but we had a couple of minutes. It still wasn't a long time. But this felt like they knew where they were going, and they just kind of rushed to get there. And I would have liked some of the time from that was brooding in that second episode to be placed into this one, to have a little brooding to so I could put myself in that headspace of what's going on, between these different characters and why. And I didn't even get a chance to figure out, like, do any of the two people in the background, the Bo-Katan's minions, does one of them like him? Does one of them not like him?
Right.
You know what I mean? Is one better at following orders? Is one more defiant? I know nothing about them except that the girl is a badass, and they're both pretty badass. But I would have liked some little more character beats in there to get me more attached to these characters than just showing up with the cool armor and everything. Although, I mean, there was more than that. Don't get me wrong. But Titus Welliver, pace right over any kind of multitude of sins. I hate to be a fanboy, but that was just freaking awesome.
It was.
And Gundark, I wanted to say when earlier, but I held off, was on the Marshal, when you were talking about that. One thing I really, really loved about that episode, my favorite moment just about from that episode, is when the Krayt Dragon survives the blast and is mowing them down with the acidic vomit. and the marshal and the Mandalorian look at each other and go, "What do we do now?" And the marshal says, "We're getting our ass handed to us. Let's go." And they put on, and he puts on his helmet, and they both take off together.
Mhm.
And I was like, yes, it's about time we had some heroes somewhere in Star Wars.
Exactly.
Because they see the people that are powerless. The people have done everything they can. They're getting yanked around. They're getting burned. They're getting killed. The Tuscans are firing. It's doing no good. Their crossbows aren't doing the job. They've kind of shot their shot, everybody, and they go, "Hey, it's time for us to step up now.
Yeah.
We have more capabilities. We have to get involved." They could have left. They could have gone, "Oh,
That's
this really went sideways. This is over," and that thing is badass. We really miscalculated. But instead they said, "I don't know what we can do, but we're going to go do it together." Yeah, and all it took was a look, and they went into action. I'm like, thank you, God, and we got, and that's the point too, where your soundtrack gets to work, everything gets to work together. The soundtrack in that moment was great. It brought me back to that feeling of Star Wars. They don't have to be heroes for real, because they're really kind of ordinary people. It's just the Mandalorian has a lot of skills he learned, kind of like Jackie Chan at the Peking Opera Circus or whatever it was. He grew up learning to jump over the tables or whatever, but in that moment, they just did the right thing. They just did the heroic thing. There was no discussion. There was no nothing. And that was just phenomenal. And I love moments like that. I don't even know if it was totally on purpose or what, but I'm so tired of the anti-heroics and the darkness, and this show is a nice escape from that. I know there's a lot of people out there that saw the spiraling door cutting the guy in half in the trailer and all that, and they want the dark bounty hunter show. But the cool thing about this is you get little bits of that, but you also get the Star Wars thing, which is positivity and optimism. Filoni said it. We always give them some optimism,
Yep.
So anyway, that was watching that the second time, and that was something that impressed me the first time too. I just wanted to say, I loved, and Carillion and I talked about it, that I loved that this guy showed up in Boba Fett's armor, and you at first were disappointed that he wasn't a badass necessarily, but I loved that. I loved that he had no shades of gray. He was just a decent human being. We said he might be the nicest guy on Tatooine. After Luke left, he's the nicest guy. After Luke and Obi-Wan, he's the nicest guy left in Tatooine. And I thought that was really cool that a guy would inherit Boba Fett's armor and do something good with it.
Yeah.
And we don't have to worry about him stabbing someone in the back or going, kind of like they did that in that first Tatooine episode with the kid who ended up being a miserable schmuck, So anyway.
Yeah, that
I don't know where I was going with all that,
moment.
but while we're talking about these past episodes, I wanted to mention that.
Yeah, that was
I hope he comes back.
It's the kind of the classic Western moment where the loner steps up to the plate, and ends up helping a community, and you find out what he's really made of, and have two of them together was really cool. And to just see both of them just instantly tip back up was like,
Yeah, that was great. And we also learned that the Mandalorian armor can hold up to stomach acid from creatures, which could explains the whole Boba Fett Sarlacc pit thing.
Exactly.
We've always suspected. But there was another Easter egg in this episode that I was going to mention, and now I've forgotten what it was. But it obviously wasn't important. But there's so many things like that scattered throughout this. I'll think of it in a minute. So I think Gundark especially is really high on this season, and we're all giving it high marks so far, except for that. My the lowest score was from me for a 5. Probably unfair, but what are you guys excited to see next?
Ahsoka.
Yeah, I mean, it's Ahsoka, but I'm just tempering that with what we talked about earlier, that we're not going to see that next.
Yeah.
That's going to be at least probably 3 episodes from now, minimum. But yeah, I mean, I'm just looking to see. I mean, I feel like they've jump started the story again. I really hope that continues, in the next episode. I hope we don't go back to kind of take a step back to like episode 2 was, again, a good episode, but a kind of a filler episode 2.
Probably what's going
Hopefully
to
they
happen.
really
Though.
start moving forward on this. So I mean, the thing I hate the most about this episode was at the end when basically the Mandalorian leaves, and I'm like, are we going to see Bo-Katan again? It's like I waited this
How
long and
long
Bo-Katan's there, and
exactly?
now okay, see ya.
Yes.
It's
See you in
like, well,
episode 8.
yeah, exactly. See you in 5 episodes. Yeah.
All right.
So hopefully that's not the case. But it's funny too. We're already through 3 episodes, and we've yet to see any of the characters from last season.
Yeah.
We haven't seen Cara Dune, we haven't seen Grief Karga, we haven't seen anybody.
No.
So I mean, I get it. I know from day one that the Mandalorian's a loner, and that's what this is going to be about. This isn't going to be about him building a crew and going around the galaxy with a crew. This is just him doing his thing. But yeah, I mean, in a way, I guess it's a testament to how well the show portrays these characters, because it makes you just miss them and want to see them more.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess honestly, that's what I'm looking forward to next, is just kind of seeing some of those characters come back. And then obviously the new stuff with Ahsoka, for sure. What about you, Greta?
Yeah, I still want to see the main story explained and moved forward. I really am longing for a good Star Wars villain. And Esposito can deliver that. There's no question. All he has to do is look at the camera, and you've got a good villain already. We know what he's done in the past and what he's capable of. I want to see him. I want to see him make sense. I want to know why he's doing what he's doing. Because I'm tired of villains that are just doing it so that there's a plot. It doesn't make any sense really at the end of the day what they're doing. So I'm hoping there's a lot of revelations about him. I'm hoping. Whatever they do, if they make him more, they show his humanity, if they show more of his inhumanity, I just want to know that it makes sense and that he's a villain I can get behind, because you need one. I mean, this show is doing a great job of being a scattergun and going all different directions, but they have done a great job of casting to where you're looking forward to what these villains are going to be. Like Werner Herzog, we were fascinated by that character.
It was great.
And we were sad when he was killed off
exactly.
early on, because frankly, we could use him, about now, I think. So, but they have their reasons. He probably didn't want to be on board for, tons of episodes of a show. But anyway, they do a brilliant job with that. So I just want to, that's what I most want to see going forward. And I'd like to see more of an ensemble and less Baby Yoda. Yes, less of the child. No offense to the child, but I mean, he's great.
No, exactly.
They can bring him out anytime they want.
I want them to utilize him in the right way, and I think
less is more.
For me, episode 1, in fact, was almost over the line, because I was afraid that it was just turning into, let's just have an action scene and then reaction shot. Let's do something over here and reaction.
He was short round.
It's just like,
he was short round.
Yeah, why do we need to see his reaction to every little thing that happens? And that to me was getting close to the line, but it didn't quite cross it. So I just hope they steer clear of that in the future.
Lady, talk mean to Mandalorian.
I agree. I agree though. I agree with Credo, Lord and King. I want more of an more of an ensemble. Here
I was ready to concede, and that will never happen now.
Okay, Greedo, Lord and King, and Traitor. I see a way in which both your approaches kind of come together. Traitor wants more of these characters from last season, which I do too. I really want Grief Karga back, and so that's one of the reasons why you said Carl Weathers is directing the next one. I'm really hoping it's coming. But also one of the great things about those characters is that they were a great ensemble cast by the time you got to the end of that season. So I want more of an ensemble element too, like Greedo was saying. And so maybe if you were able to bring some of the old characters back and then get them somehow integrated with the new stuff that they're introducing, you could develop another ensemble that had the same kind of power that they had at the end of the last season. But then I also want more Moff Gideon. It's time now to know more of what's going on. We had to wait so long last season, until the very end. And it's time now to know more what he's up to and what's going on with the Darksaber. And now that you got Bo-Katan introduced, more of that should be fleshed out now.
Exactly.
So I agree with both you guys.
Yeah, well, it's a lot to look forward to, and I think the rest of the season is gonna pay off. So I'm enjoyed it so far. So so I'm definitely looking forward to the rest of it. All right, so we'll go ahead and wrap up there, and we'll see you next week. Hopefully a 3-person show, but probably a 2-person show, because we know that those spice mines, they don't take well
I
to
might
losing
have to return
losing
to
their
the
slaves.
pipeline.
We're gonna bring Gundark out for the child death episode.
I have to be there.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! All right, guys, we'll see you next time. Bye.
We
all know around here, Solo always does
Not
shots
OG.
first. Sing your love, raise your glass, and sing your love. Sing it with me, your love. At the Cantina Club.
That's a shame.
Yeah, I know.
But,
So,
maybe
but at
let's
least
be safe, I guess.
at least it'll be before Thanksgiving, so that'll be good. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Pardon me.
I didn't do it. I did not do that.